Namaste, everybody. All right, after the mobbing. Before I get into the after the mobbing thing and all kinds of cool little stories, I just want to redefine what a mobbing is, and I'll tell you why. So a lot of people, and I misdefined it, I guess. I said a mobbing is bullying on steroids. That's kind of like the common definition. Now, a bunch of people giving you a hard time and teasing you or, making fun of you does not constitute a mobbing. All right, that's bullying. That's plain old bullying. And it's not right. And it's something that has to be addressed, but it's easier typically to address than a mobbing is. I'll tell you something about a mobbing. A mobbing is not overt. Okay, so you can't catch someone in the act because there's no act to catch them in. Okay, typically what happens during a mobbing is people have gotten together. It's a planned series of events, first of all. People might do the teasing. You can bite them, though. And they'll typically stop doing the teasing, and then they'll accuse you of being a horrible person. Oh, my God. Did you see? She's just so rude and nasty. It's almost like they ignore the behavior purposely, okay, that they've done to incite whatever reaction from you. That's one. Second, gaslighting is an essential component of any mobbing. So it was Angry Sim Racer who wrote something that I found very interesting. And it was, a mobbing is something whereby people make you doubt your own reality. The whole term gaslighting, I'd explained it in one of the videos. It was kind of short and sweet. Maybe I'll do another gaslighting video, something a little longer and more in depth. Okay, so what gaslighting is, again, it's a bunch of people behind your back starting to plan things to make you kind of lose it. All right. And for me, like I said, it was temperature. As soon as I got back from my vacation. Now, prior to my vacation, everything was cool. I had no problem. I'd been at the workplace for 2 years. The people that I worked with at this point had kind of changed. We had a new manager, a big manager, who was younger and happened to be a woman. I mean, not that it really makes a difference other than the fact that some of those underhanded kind of tactics, like, for instance, she, from what I heard anyhow, and from what I saw from another manager there, she had accused someone of harassment because they didn't invite her to a ball game. Like those kind of tactics, right? Those are not my style, irrespective. To me, it's beyond the male-female thing, but truth is, it's a very female tactic these days. Another thing I'd like to bring to light is that stuff like this, like say, I don't know, here in Canada, maybe 10, 15 years ago, just wouldn't really happen very often. We've become a very politically correct environment, so you have to mind your P's and Q's. It's an environment almost that favors cowardly people, if you will. Okay, so if you're the type to stand up for anything, you'd best just keep your place and keep your mouth shut. So mobbings here are not just people being mean to you, okay, or making fun of you and making you feel uncomfortable. That's bullying. Like I said, the extra component in a mobbing, typically, is that there's higher-ups that are involved, all right? You can't catch anybody in the act because there's no act to catch them in. Like, say, they'll tease you, and like I said, it's always a good idea to write everything down, and it's hard to confront an eye roll, okay, or those passive-aggressive things, but you can, actually, if you have, like, a couple of events noted. If you didn't catch it on the spot, which it's, like I said, it's hard to confront, like, you rolled your eyes at me, if it's a one-time deal. Well, they might say, well, I didn't do that, right? Like, wow, she's really paranoid. Oh, hypersensitive. So it's always a good idea to kind of clock the events, okay? List them, and then that last time, like say it happens 2-3 times. I give it a 3-time kind of limit. Then you can go knock on the door, say, I'd like to talk to you about something, and have your events with the times and the whole deal. So if the person denies it, you can kind of confront them with the information. So if you're getting bullied, you got to take a stand. There's no other way to do it, right? Like, it's not like people are just going to stop. And, not everybody is like you. Like, I'm the type of person that's live and let live, That person is this way and a bit of a different bird. God bless. I like that stuff. Actually, I love individuals, right? I don't like the cookie cutter stuff. But that too, if you want to be a cookie cutter, it's your choice, right? So what happens in a mobbing, typically, like I said, it's higher-ups. Somebody's threatened by you. It's either reactive, like you did one thing or said something that they perceived as, being an insubordination. That word was used a lot where I used to work. That is being the insubordination of that particular person, just for having an opinion. You don't even have to be rude about it. Like I said, narcissists are hypersensitive. They're the ones that are hypersensitive. They'll accuse you of the same thing. Excuse me. Anyways, so yeah, we'll get into the whole gaslighting thing, but that's a typical component of it, right? They're trying to squeeze you out of the environment, not just because you're different, okay? Because you're a threat, or they think you're, whatever, like you make them look bad, or something of the sort. Or it could be somebody, sometimes on your own level, that is trying to climb up that ladder, and you may be just better than them, and they don't like that. So they'll get together with the narcs, they'll plan something out, and then they'll try to slowly but surely make you lose your take on your own freaking reality. So it's an ugly thing anyhow. So our environment here in Canada, from my perception, is that it favors passive aggression completely. So if you're a cowardly type, you'll do good here. Sorry, you know what? You just sit and take it and say, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. I'm not like that. So whatever. Like I said, it's a bad person environment fit. So sometimes, yeah, people that are mobbed are the most outspoken. Okay. I'm not saying that somebody who's not outspoken can't be mobbed. They can be. But again, an essential component of a mobbing is that gaslighting thing. And it's not overt. It's covert all the time because it's always going to be deniable, right? So I'm going to move on. What happens after the mobbing? Well, for me, again, can only speak from my personal experiences. I'm not a therapist or anything of the sort. You'll feel really horrible. You'll feel really, really bad once you start to put all the pieces together and start to put yourself together. And you'll think back to certain events and you might say, wow, feel kind of sorry for yourself. It's like, wow, I can't believe they did that to me. And then you'll get angry, right? You kind of go through the stages. It was, I think, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. I'll put a link to it. It's almost like the stages that you go through when you're grieving a loss or a death. That was my experience, okay? You're almost grieving a loss or a death of, to me, what I looked at, it was a loss or a death of my old self. Now, I held my tongue many times throughout that 7-year period. And myself doesn't typically do that stuff, right? I kind of got lost in that whole thing. You start to, I personally am a very creative person. I love to paint. Octopus are my favorite subject. I'll show you a couple of my paintings one day. I got a couple behind me. Hello. But anyhow, I stopped doing all my creative stuff. 7 years is a long time to lose your groove, right? Just from time to time I dabble, but I kind of lost that drive, right? In terms of, like, say they talk about chakras and energy, I know the chakras that were lacking, I'll tell you that now. So yeah, it kind of just, even, like, I love music. I stopped listening to my favorite kind of tunes. I washed myself. I was like this washed creature, all of a sudden rather colorless and, quite tame, when that's just not my nature to be that way. But again, I was trying to fit into the environment. We have to adapt to our environment sometimes. And that's what I did. I felt kind of desperate. I didn't have the financial means. Truth is, I could have gotten another job elsewhere, right? Probably wouldn't have been as high paying as the job that I had, but I would have still managed. I think I put an excuse, right? Anyhow, so after the mobbing, that was the first stage. I just felt awful. And that's where social support really comes into play. All right. I had already gone to see a medical professional about my back issues, but I hadn't gone to see them or to see anybody about all of the mental distress that I had gone through. I'd been through a lot in my life, so I figured I can handle this. But obviously, throughout a lifetime, sometimes you handle things depending on, how can I put it, the events that are happening. Sometimes the way you handle it, say as a kid, is very adaptive. But the way you've adapted to the situation no longer applies. The situation is different. So whatever habits you have might be wrong for the situation you're in. That was my case. So it took me about a month to kind of figure that part out and to really kind of swallow my pride, I guess, and say, I think I got to see somebody and talk to someone about this stuff. Because it was like that PTSD thing. All of a sudden, all of these terrible memories from my past, old memories that I would say were unresolved, things that I had long forgotten, started creeping up in my mind. And it was almost as though I likened it to not being able to push it away. I likened it to trying to flush a toilet and the stuff just don't go down. It was impossible. I started to, on my own, journal quite a bit, and not about the events of the mobbing, but about events that had happened in my life that were very unresolved. All right. And it was great that I had a really good support system. Okay. Again, I have some, not a lot, right? But I have a few really good friends and I have a great spouse. And I can't say that enough. And I don't take any of this stuff for granted, nor should you. So I guess that's like intro B, because I had my little intro video saying I would talk about this stuff. So I'll start it off this way. I just wanted to redefine like my definition of what a mobbing is. Everybody's going to have their own, I suppose, because the operational definition seems to be very weak. From my personal experiences and from the people who I saw getting mobbed, this is what it is. It's somebody who poses a threat. It's usually somebody who's outspoken, all right? But I've seen people getting bullied of all kinds, people who are just different birds. And the sad part, again, it's like, man, they got to stand up for themselves. You got to do something at some point. I mean, even if you're not the type, you know, nobody's going to do it for you, okay? You got to take a stand. And typically, when you're being bullied because you're different, and you do take a stand and say, hey, I really don't like that you talk to me that way. Or you did this, and be very specific, you know, and it really bothered me. And again, I like the idea of going with a list of things. And a lot of the times during a bullying, because that bully is, you know, just having fun with you. And sometimes, you know, to lack the empathy to know that, it would bother me, so I wouldn't do it to someone else. But not everybody's made that way. Sometimes sensitizing people can help, and maybe it won't. But you got to give it a shot, right? Because the beginning of a mobbing is typically that kind of, you know, but typically not so overt. It'll still be deniable, but it's bullying at the very beginning. But then the gaslighting starts to happen in a mobbing, all right? So again, if you're just getting bullied, it's almost like being at the early stages of a mobbing. You have to try to address it, okay? Anyhow, so that's kind of, I know it's a little all over the place, but I figure, look, it's a bit of a cloudy day. I got all kinds of work to do outside, a lot of stuccoing to do. But I figured I'd take the break, and hopefully it won't rain so I could get back to my work. And I wish you guys the best. Namaste, peace and love, Foxy D. I'll be back with more. You take care. Ciao.